This is The Still Ones, written by Beryl Coops.
In the drowned valleys of the Scottish Highlands, 17-year-old Robyn has survived 6 years of silence. The world she remembers is gone, swallowed by water, by ruin, and by something that moves unseen beneath the surface. When a distant hum begins to stir through the mountains once more, Robyn is drawn to the crumbling remains of an old hydroelectric dam, a relic of the age before the Stillness. There she meets Bonnie, another survivor with secrets of her own, and together they uncover a mystery that blurs the line between the living and the dead. As the hum grows stronger, Robyn must decide whether to flee the haunting quiet or face what's waking beneath it. The Still Ones is a tense, atmospheric story of survival and rediscovery, where silence has a voice, memory is alive, and the world itself may not be finished with its own heartbeat. The Still Ones. Chapter 1. The Smoke Above the Water. She had watched the place for hours and seen no movement of any kind, but caution had kept her pinned to the ridge. The hydro station perched where the valley pinched tight, a concrete scar holding back the black plate of the lock. Rust gnawed at railings, weeds tufted the parapets, and the spillway glistened faintly like the back of a drowning thing. Robyn stayed low among the heather, cheek cold against the peat, counting the minutes with the steady patience she'd taught herself since the world fell quiet. The light bled away by slow degrees. It made shapes honest, the broken telegraph poles stepping into the distance, the fingery silhouette of Scots pines on the far slope, the bolted squares of the station's windows. The dark, she'd learned, inspires light, coaxes the careless into striking matches, invites the lonely to build a fire for company. If anyone was inside, night would make them declare themselves. No flame woke. No battery torch cut a slit in the gloom. Wind worried the heather into small waves, and a pair of crows muttered and shouldered off toward the drowning church spire that poked through the lock like a finger accusing the sky. She waited until the stars turned bright and particular and her breath made no fog. 3 hours into darkness, still nothing. Time to move. She slid down the ridge with a patience that never caught a stone, keeping her weight soft, her hands open to read the ground. The air carried lock cold and the faint smell of silt and old iron. A row of drowned cottages lay on the near shore, roofs barely above the waterline, windows like blank eyes. She passed them without looking in. The last time she'd looked into a drowned window, she'd seen her own face staring back, thin and fox-hungry, and for a heartbeat had believed it belonged to someone else. The station crouched ahead, a shape cut from the night. No lamps, no humming. She stopped at the fence, pressed her palm to the wire and waited for the bite of current that didn't come. The padlock had been cut some time ago and left to hang like a jaw. She eased through, brushed a warning sign with her sleeve, danger, deep water, and took the service path that ran to the side door. Inside, she moved with the stealth of a cat. No sound, no torch to betray her position, only the slim tide of moonlight pooled on floors and catching the edges of old machinery. She paused to listen with her bones rather than her ears. Concrete holds echoes like a throat holds a swallowed cry, and tonight the place was a held breath. She found the control room by smell before she saw it. Dust, once hot electrics, the gone scent of oil. Papers lay curled on a desk as if they had chosen to roll themselves into secrecy. A chair sat askew, not toppled, and beyond it a bank of dials watched her with blind faces. She put her fingertips to the panel, feeling for a tremor, for the little shiver that would speak of power still crawling through the bones of the station. Nothing. She drifted on. Behind the control room, a stairwell dropped to the generator floor. Far below, the lock thrummed against concrete with the patient push of a sleeping beast. She took the stairs sideways, keeping to the wall, placing each foot where the previous foot had proved the step would hold. A moth rose from the dark and ticked against her cheek. She swallowed the flinch and let it go past. On the generator floor, moonlight slashed in through the high windows and made hard silver of everything it touched. Decking, gantries, the humped shapes of turbines stilled mid-breath. She walked a path she had imagined from the ridge, traced in the air for hours with her eyes. A ladder at the far end would take her up to the switchgear gallery where she could look down on the entire hall. From there she would decide whether to slip back out and never return, or claim this place as hers for a while. Roof, shelter, height, the Holy Trinity. She set her weight to the first rung. The moon went out. Not a cloud slide, not the honest slow dimming of weather. It was a click, a lid dropping, the kind of absence that made her feel for a heartbeat that someone had put a hand over her eyes. The darkness pressed like velvet, soft but smothering. She froze with one foot on the ladder, her hands curled around cold metal, the shape of her breathing suddenly too large for her body, ink black. In the dark, sound turned ruler straight. The lock's push and whisper measured the distance. Somewhere a drip took up a rhythm, light, light, heavy, as if counting in a language she didn't know. Her heart quietened itself out of habit. Fear was a bright thing, and bright things got seen. She listened until the list of sounds resolved, and in their spaces she felt it. A breath not her own. Not a breath, exactly. A stirring. The slightest movement of air against the fine hairs on her forearms, raising them from skin. Her mind offered reasons. Faithful servant that it was, the door behind her not quite shut. A pressure change. A small animal disturbed in some nest of rags. Reason is a good dog for the day. At night, instinct keeps the watch. Someone was here. Friend or foe? The categories had softened over the years, their edges worn like coins handled too much. The last friend she'd met had stolen her boots while she slept and left her a note weighted with a stone. Sorry. The last foe had looked up from his fire as she approached and said nothing at all, then let her share the heat and a crust until morning, and had been gone when she woke, leaving the fire built up and a handful of raisins on a tin lid. She should be frightened. She had been 11 when the world stopped making the kind of sense you could wear like a coat. Fear had been the first thing to go. Then language, then the habit of speaking she'd had since she was small and trying words on to see which fit. The strip of leather on her wrist, the last thing her father had made before he went still at the kitchen table mid-sentence, sat warm under her sleeve. She touched it with one finger, not for luck, but to check whether she felt steady enough to move. She did. She stepped off the ladder and let the darkness be her cover. If anyone had a torch, the first flick would be their declaration. If anyone had a blade, it would be as blind as she was. She set her shoulders in line with the room and took small, counted paces, using the turbine housings as furniture in a house she was learning by the shape of its air. One hand brushed cold metal, the other stretched a fraction out, reading the void. The breeze moved again, minute as a whispered question. It came from her right, high up, as if a door had opened onto night and closed again carefully. She tilted her head until the tiny hairs in her ears caught a soft hiss. Above, the gallery. She imagined the problem the way she always did when she fixed something broken. How would she get at herself if she were the other? Where would she stand if she wanted to look down and not be seen? She pictured the gallery in memory of the moonlit map she'd made, railing, switch cabinets, a cutout that let you see the turbine hall below. A person would crouch at the corner where the gantry met the wall. There would be a draught there from a cracked pane. She changed course and put herself where she would be seen if she were careless. A soft scrape to her left said the other had done the same calculation and chosen not to show their face. Good. Let them be careful too. Careful people didn't lunge. Hello, she did not say. The word rose, and she pressed her tongue to the roof of her mouth until it sank back down through her. She reached the far end of the hall, where a rusted staircase climbed to the gallery. The first step was a lyre, solid-looking but sprung with rust, and would sing out if she put full weight on it. She put only the weight of memory of a foot and shifted at the squeak to spread it among hands and the edge of her boot. The staircase was a harp. She played it quietly, one string at a time. At the top she kept low. Moonlight might come back at any second. Better to be beneath the line of a window than caught like a moth on glass. She slid along the wall until she reached the corner she'd imagined. The draught stroked her cheek, colder now, scented with wet stone and the high, clean metallic stink of rain on an old roof. Someone exhaled. It wasn't much, more a letting go than a breath, but the human mouth makes a particular shape of air, and you learn it when you've spent years expecting nothing from the dark. She could have reached out and touched them if she'd been the kind of person who believed in gambling. Instead, she spoke for the first time in weeks. "If you've come to take, there's nothing here worth the blood." Her voice sounded strange. A reed instrument found in a drawer and played without practice. Husky, careful, a creature that looked left and right before crossing. The words lay between them like a line scratched in dust. Silence answered, and then the moon returned with a shy little flourish, as if a child had lifted a finger from a switch. Silver ran along the gallery rail, lit the sweep of the hall and the humps of the turbines. It caught the edge of a coat sleeve, less than an arm's length away. A hand rested on the floor by her boot. The fingers were long, clean, nails bitten low. The hand did not move. Robyn drew breath once more and let it out, long and quiet, as if speaking to a skittish animal. Her fear stayed where it was told. Calm flowed into the space it left, cool and obedient. If the world had taught her anything, it was that you cannot stop the dark. You can only decide how you travel through it. "Friend or foe," she said just above a whisper, and the word friend felt old-fashioned and quite beautiful in her mouth. "Choose." The Still Ones, Chapter 2, The Echo of Footsteps. The hand did not move. Robyn waited, letting the moon's thin wash settle the shapes around it. A cuff of wool, ribbed and frayed, hugged a wrist the colour of candle wax. The fingers lay relaxed, not clenched, not reaching, placed as if arranged. She tracked upwards, slow as ivy, and found the shadowed line of a forearm, a shoulder, the slope of a neck. A face, half-turned, received the light without answering it. The eyes stared past her, lids neither blinking nor dried to glass. The skin bore the livid bloom of living blood, not the blue of long death. "Choose," she had said. The gallery yielded no answer except the sound of water labouring below and the higher, finer noise of night finding its way through cracks. She saw the tiniest movement in the hair at the temple, no tremor of flesh, only a draught lifting it from the skin, and told herself it proved nothing. Gently, she set 2 fingers on the back of the hand. Warm. The warmth wasn't the kindness she'd expected. It was unnerving. It made stasis plausible. In the years since the stillness, she had learned a strange taxonomy. Animals who ran, animals who watched, people who moved, people who didn't. The still ones complicated this, standing in doorways or fields or at kitchen sinks, upright, unrotting, as if the world had pressed pause on the exact breath that had once occupied them. She'd never been this close to one for long. Instinct had always outpaced curiosity. Curiosity won. She leaned nearer, slow enough that if there was violence tucked inside this shape, it would have to declare itself with warning. The eyelashes didn't glint, they absorbed the light. A faint smear of oil marked the cheek, thumb-width, old and rubbed. A nick lay healing along the jaw, shallow, new. Everything suggested now, not then. "Friend or foe?" she whispered again, and the word fogged only the air between her teeth. Below them, something fell. It was not large, no more than a nut or a bolt shedding its rest, but the sound carried cleanly up through the turbine hall, struck the metal rail and worked its way into her spine like a key being turned. The hand by her boot remained where it was. The face did not change, nor did it stop feeling like a face that could change. She withdrew her fingers, set them against the gallery floor instead, and slid soundlessly away along the wall. The draught cooled to nothing. The moon shifted and left the figure half in shadow again, and in that half state it was easier for her mind to misfile it as statue, as coat thrown over a hook, as anything other than a warm human body that declined to act like one. Stairs carried her down to the generator level. She placed each foot as though the step would be timed to a breath she had not yet taken. The echo of the fallen piece led her to the far end of the hall, where a maintenance trolley sat with its tray half raised. A spanner had rolled, found a lip and dropped. She hovered her hand above the spanner without touching it, feeling for the ghost of vibration. Nothing. She listened. Footsteps, soft above, padded rather than shod. They drew a line along the gallery exactly where she had been moments earlier, and their cadence matched what her own would have been had she walked there still. She looked up and saw nothing. The moon, capricious god tonight, thinned and thickened with the kind of cloud that had no edges, and the rail cut a stubborn black seam across the high wall. She moved. The footsteps moved. One step. Stop. She let a grin slip across her mouth, quick as bad weather. She'd learned long ago that fear and the impulse to answer it were different creatures. This was not fear speaking, it was the itch of a puzzle. She ran her knuckles lightly along the metal casing of a turbine to make it sing, a thin skin-prickle tone. Silence from above. She scraped the sole of her boot over the grid only enough to write the idea of sound. A whisper answered. A human breath trying not to be. Not the still one, then. Another living person. Two presences in one place would have been extravagant. It felt like too much, like a trick. But the world no longer obeyed her sense of proportion. She retreated to the control room, where the air was dense with paperwork and the dry taste of stale current. By the window, a stub of candle sat in a sardine tin, its wick bent and charred. The wax had pooled and cooled with the particular rippling that meant a breath had blown over it while it set. Someone had been here within days. A coat, oilskin, hung on the back of the chair. Heavy, long, farmer cut. Not hers. She slid her hand into the pocket. Her fingers found a fish hook wrapped in cloth, a twist of line, 2 raisins stuck together by their own syrup. She placed the raisins on the desk with a small, involuntary respect. Food was an admission of scale. You left it for those you expected to be your size. She told herself it didn't prove generosity. It proved presence. A small mirror leaned against a bank of gauges. She lifted it and angled it toward the door, making a little periscope of her hand. Nothing moved in the corridor beyond unless moonlight counted, and moonlight had stopped applying for positions here. Above, the echo started again. Step, step. It had a mimic's talent. She pictured the other moving as she did, using the machinery as islands in a dark sea. A game, then, or a test. She thought of the hand on the gallery floor, of its warmth, and her teeth worried the inside of her cheek until she tasted iron. Take it away from words, she told herself, using her father's voice, a habit that still surprised her when she noticed it. Make it mechanics. Mechanics was, there is at least one other person in the building. They have no interest in opening with force, or they would have. They have chosen to shadow rather than divert. They haven't used light. Their footfalls are soft. If they meant to frighten, they would have done more. If they meant to greet, they would have said so. So, they mean to learn. She could respect that. It was how she had lived. She left the control room and took the stairs up 2 at a time, deliberately loud for 3 steps, then stopped dead in the shadow of the landing and pressed herself flat to the wall. The echo footsteps hurried to follow, overshooting by 1 pace before catching themselves. There. Her mouth made an unvoiced laugh. She shifted, slid along the wall to the old relay cabinets that made a maze on the gallery, and peered through the gap between 2 metal boxes. A shape detached from darkness and hastily wedged itself into it again. Not large, thin. Shoulders hunched, head tilted to catch sound. The silhouette read as young, but silhouettes have lied before. The figure's hands were bare. One held something like a stick or a length of pipe, light enough to carry in one hand and swing if need be. The other hand hovered at hip height, palm out, balancing. "Hullo," she didn't say, though the urge warmed her throat like a swallow of whiskey. She lowered herself and edged closer. At 3 meters, the figure would hear her, even if she breathed with surgical care. She breathed anyway. Let them know. Let the next move choose itself. The moon sighed away again, leaving whatever they were to decide themselves without witness. Robyn set her palm on the raised lip of the relay cabinet, ready to pivot around it, a move that would bring her face to face with the other, and then changed her mind. If you had taught yourself to fear angles because angles belonged to rooms where people had once stood and talked, a face could feel like a weapon. She withdrew her weight and said, low and even, "I don't want a fight." Silence. Then the softest brush of skin on metal, their hand, perhaps, exploring as hers had. When the reply came, it was not a word but a sound. Tick. A small tongue click made between teeth, the universal signal for there or careful or I hear you in 100 camps since the fall. She felt the answer rise and, before she could trap it, let a matching tick fall from her own mouth. A pause. Then another sound, closer to a syllable but not committing. The stick pipe tapped once against the gallery floor, a discreet marker placed on an invisible map. They were making rules, then. Good. Rules could be kept. Robyn took a slow half-step back, and the figure did not follow. A truce measured in air. She lifted her hand to the rail and rapped a pattern with her knuckles. 3, pause, 2. Old signal, no meaning except that of repetition. The pipe answered, 3, pause, 2. Her grin went wider this time, private. She allowed herself a breath that didn't feel rationed. The fact of the unmoving hand at the gallery's beginning seemed farther away, less like a trap and more like a warning pinned to a door. This is the kind of place where the world has rules you do not know yet. Fine. She could learn them. She backed away until the stairs' sound would hide her, then went down, keeping to the side so the Rust's voice would speak softly. On the hall floor she gathered what could be gathered quickly if she needed to leave in a hurry. A coil of line, the sardine tin candle, the oilskin if she judged later that its smell wouldn't betray her to animals. She tucked the raisins back into the coat's pocket where she had found them, an answer in the same idiom. I am here. I didn't take everything. Leave me the same. Before she left the control room, she turned one dial a fraction. It did nothing but make the needle quiver. The building was asleep too deeply to be woken by such courtesies. Still, it pleased some perverse part of her that enjoyed pretending the world was susceptible to gentle requests. She crossed the hall, found the service door, and slipped into the night. The cold outside was a straight, honest cold that told the truth about distance and altitude. Pine smell pulled at the damp, a bright thread of green through the water rot. Behind her, the station hunched, a dark animal with its head tucked under its wing. On the ridge, she lay where she had lain before and watched. The gallery window didn't show a face. No light offered itself to moths. The moon ran her tricks for a while and then, as if embarrassed, stayed. After a time she became aware of another sound beside the lock's patient push, something faintly rhythmic far away, too even for an animal, too polite for weather. A pulse. She counted, 1 and 20, 2 and 20, and lost it when the wind turned. She rested her cheek against the peat and made a small plan for morning. Go back early, bring the net she'd woven from fencing twine, test the water by the outlet for fish. See whether the hand on the gallery had altered even a fraction. Listen for the mimic's footsteps, and this time offer a word with both hands open so it couldn't be mistaken for a blade. Sleep teased the edges of her sight. She did not let it in. The last time she had slept after meeting a stranger, she had woken to boot prints beside her fire and sorry, written with a charred stick on a flat stone. She didn't mind the raisins gone. She minded the word. Apologies smelled like people. People gathered wolves. Below, the station kept its counsel. Somewhere inside it, a spanner lay precisely where it had fallen, and a hand that was warm to the touch rested exactly where it had been when the moon first came back. Above, on the gallery, a thin shape held still, and learned the way her footsteps sounded when she chose to be heard. Robyn watched until the sky paled enough to show where the land stopped pretending to be night. Then she rose, brushed peat from her sleeves, and began the slow descent back toward the concrete and its unanswered questions. The Still Ones, Chapter 3, The Rule of Silence. By dawn mist had rolled off the lock like breath from something sleeping. It hung low between the pines, silencing the world. Robyn descended the slope with her pack slung high and her knife sheathed against her thigh. The ground held its chill. It always did near deep water. She'd learned to trust quiet more than noise. Noise could be reasoned with, wind, weather, wildlife, but silence had intent. It was the sound of something listening. The station waited where she'd left it, ribs of concrete striped with moss and frost. No smoke rose from the vent pipes. No gulls perched on the dam rail. The place had the still, watchful patience of a predator conserving its energy. She stopped at the wire fence again and crouched, checking the ground. 2 sets of prints, hers and another's, overlapped in the mud. One smaller than her own, light on the heel, sharp on the toe. Not heavy enough for a man. Young. Her mimic from last night. She followed the trail a short way until it vanished over gravel, then let it go. Tracks were like stories. They only told truth until someone noticed them being read. Robyn eased through the fence and stood for a moment, taking in the low hum of the morning. Water lapped against concrete. Somewhere below, trapped air burped in slow rhythm, echoing like the old heart of the valley. Inside, the air was colder still. The shadows had changed shape, stretched long and pale as the sun climbed behind cloud. Her breath moved before her, thin ribbons of warmth that vanished quick as thought. The gallery was as she'd left it. The hand lay exactly where it had been, fingers curled slightly inward, as if keeping hold of something invisible. She waited for the pulse of life that had fooled her last night. Nothing. The warmth had gone, leaving skin that no longer seemed human. But something else had changed. Near the railing, beside a rusted switchboard, someone had left a mark, a small cross scratched into the grime, fresh, drawn with a fingertip. Robyn touched it and found moisture still clinging to the groove, condensation from skin. Whoever had been here had touched the metal not long before she returned. She whispered, almost to the air, "You still here?" The whisper felt strange, like using a muscle that had forgotten its strength. The words hit the concrete and bounced back small, hollow. She hated how her own voice made her feel visible. She retreated into herself, drawing on a habit so old it had become her rule, the rule of silence. Never speak where walls could echo. Never hum, never cough, never name the things you fear, because naming made them listen. It was her father who had taught her that, though not for this world. Before the stillness came, before the day the lock had swallowed the valley whole, he'd worked at the same station, keeping turbines running for towns that no longer existed. He'd told her silence was part of the job. Machines hear you when they're dying, and they hold grudges. She could still see him at the kitchen table, grease on his palms, mug steaming beside him. He'd looked up mid-sentence, eyes gone glassy. No fall, no gasp, no pain. Just stopped, like someone had called his name, and he'd left his body behind. She'd shaken him until dawn. By the time the light came, he was cold and perfect. That was 6 years ago. Robyn turned from the gallery and moved through the main hall, letting the memory fade. Every step was calculated, heel down slow, toe rolling silent. The habit was survival now, not reverence. She reached the maintenance office at the back of the turbine hall. The door hung slightly open, a hinge creaking softly as she pushed. Inside, a scattering of tins and tools lay on the floor. A nest of blankets sat in one corner. Someone had been living here recently. Sleeping bag patched with denim, a tin of sardines, a flask still half full. She unscrewed the cap. The scent of tea, old but unmistakable, rose from it. Someone else had warmth, and not long ago. Her mimic again. She crouched and examined the floor around the bedding. Prints, faint and dry, barefoot, that fit the steps she'd heard. Whoever they were, they travelled light and silent, a fellow ghost. Something scratched behind her. She spun, knife up, breath held. A rat darted from the shadows, disappearing through a hole in the skirting. She let the tension drain, but her pulse stayed loud. When she turned back, the mirror on the wall, a small rectangle cracked at one corner, reflected a flicker of movement behind her. She twisted fast. Nothing. Only the shape of the turbines through the doorway and the shaft of white daylight breaking across the floor. Then she heard it. Footsteps. Not echoes, not mimicry. Actual footsteps descending metal stairs. She slid behind the office door and waited, blade tight to her thigh. The steps reached the floor, light, careful. Then they stopped. "Don't," said a voice. Soft, female, young, Scottish Highland edge to it. Robyn froze. The voice was dry with disuse, like her own when she tried to talk after days of silence. "I don't want to hurt you," the girl said. Robyn hesitated. Her heart beat 3 steady times. She stepped out from behind the door. The other girl stood at the base of the stairs, barefoot, as Robyn had guessed. Her hair was pale, tangled, and she held a metal pipe loosely in one hand, though not raised. She looked thinner than Robyn, more hollow around the cheeks, but her eyes were steady. "I'm not looking for a fight," Robyn said carefully. "Good," the girl replied, "because you'd lose." There was no malice in it, only a statement of fact, like she'd measured Robyn already and logged the details. They stood in silence, measuring one another. Finally, Robyn lowered the knife. "You left the raisins. You put them back." That surprised a brief, crooked smile out of the stranger. "Didn't think anyone would notice. I notice everything. I bet you do." The girl stepped closer, pipe angled toward the floor. "Name's Bonnie." Robyn hesitated, then nodded once. "Robyn." "Right." Bonnie glanced around, restless, eyes darting toward the gallery. "You saw him too, didn't you?" Robyn followed her gaze. "The one up there?" Bonnie nodded. "He's one of them. They don't rot, don't breathe, don't die. Robyn's throat tightened. You've seen others? Plenty. Bonnie's tone went flat. All over the Highlands. Towns full of them, standing in the streets like statues. They're not gone. There. She searched for the word, jaw working. Waiting. For what? Bonnie's eyes flicked toward the turbines, toward the loch below. For the next pulse. The word sat between them like a cold coin dropped on stone. Robyn had heard it too, the faint rhythm in the water last night, regular as a heartbeat. She'd told herself it was nothing, a trick of current. Now it had a name. Bonnie crossed to the window and leaned on the frame, staring out toward the water. You feel it, don't you? The air changes just before it happens. Then everything hums. The still ones shiver like they remember something. Remember what? Robyn asked. Being alive. Silence stretched. Somewhere a drop of water found a metal edge and fell, echoing between the machines. Robyn slid her knife back into its sheath. You've been here long? Couple of weeks, maybe 3. Bonnie's voice lowered. There's power in the dam still. Something buried deep keeps running. I came to see if it could be shut down. Robyn frowned. Why? Because the pulses are getting stronger, and every time the still ones wake for a little longer. Outside, the light dimmed, as if the day itself were holding its breath. The 2 girls stood in the quiet heart of the station, watching the shadows tremble. Then Robyn felt it again, that subtle shift in the air, the hair-raising current that came before something changed. Bonnie looked at her sharply. You feel it? Robyn nodded. The world seemed to pause, a held breath between beats. Then from deep beneath their feet the faintest hum began, low, metallic and steady. The turbine housings vibrated ever so slightly, dust rising in silver motes. Bonnie whispered, Here it comes. And Robyn, remembering her father's last unfinished sentence and the warmth of the hand that shouldn't have been warm, understood what she'd been too afraid to before. The world wasn't done with its noise yet. It was just changing the tune. Chapter 4. The Man Who Didn't Move. The hum deepened until it was no longer sound but vibration, a low resonance that pressed against bone and breath alike. Dust lifted from the floor in soft spirals. The air tasted faintly of metal and rain. Bonnie braced herself against a turbine casing, her hair lifting slightly with the static charge that filled the room. Robyn didn't move. Movement felt like a betrayal of the moment, as if one wrong step might draw the world's attention to her heartbeat. The hum built to a trembling note, then softened again, fading as gently as it had come. A few bolts rattled loose somewhere deep in the dam's guts. The silence that followed was heavier than before, a silence that remembered sound. Bonnie exhaled first. That's it, she murmured. It happens about once every few days, always stronger than the last. Robyn swallowed. What causes it? Bonnie shook her head. Something still alive down there. Robyn's eyes moved toward the gallery where the still man stood watching nothing. And them? They stir when it happens, Bonnie said. Not all of them, but some. It's like the noise inside the earth calls to them. Robyn thought of the pulse beneath the lock, of the warmth she'd felt under her fingertips. You said they were waiting. Bonnie's expression hardened. Aye, waiting for something to finish. Robyn didn't ask what. She already knew the kind of silence that waited to be broken. They climbed the stair to the gallery together. The air grew colder the higher they went, thin as the top of a mountain. Light slipped through the cracked window panes, dividing the hall below into bright and shadowed lanes. The turbine sat motionless but not dead, like beasts at rest between hunts. The man was exactly where Robyn had last seen him. Standing near the window, posture unnaturally perfect, chin slightly lifted, as though still waiting for someone to finish speaking to him. His coat, dark wool, high-collared, had once been fine, though dust had turned it the colour of stone. Bonnie stopped several feet short of him. They call them the still ones, but that's not really what they are, she said quietly. Stillness isn't death. It's something else, something caught between. Robyn took a slow step closer. The man's eyes were open, deep brown, almost black. They reflected nothing, not the light, not the girls, not the world. He didn't blink. He's warm, Robyn whispered. Was last night. Bonnie nodded. They all are. The pulse keeps them like that. Robyn studied the man's face, the faint stubble, the crease at his brow, the small cut at his jawline. A man caught in an instant of thought, like someone had asked him a question, and he was still searching for the answer. "I found one once," Bonnie said. "Out on the moors near Braemar, a woman holding a child. They'd been that way for years. Rain washed their clothes thin, but their skin didn't change. When the hum came, their eyes moved. Just once." Robyn turned, her own reflection faint in the man's pupils. "And when the hum stops, they forget they ever moved." Bonnie's voice was calm, but Robyn saw how tight her grip was on the pipe she carried. Fear hidden under control, the same kind of fear Robyn had lived with for years. She moved closer until she could feel the air around the man, faintly warmer than the rest of the room. She could smell him now too, a human scent, sweat and dust, and something faintly chemical, like engine oil. "Do they know we're here?" she asked. Bonnie shrugged. "I don't think so, but when the next pulse comes, I think they will." Robyn reached out a hand, then stopped. Something changed. It was slight, a tremor in the air, a shift of weight in the floor, but unmistakable. The man's head tilted, a fraction too small to call movement, yet large enough to steal every breath in the room. His eyes, dull seconds ago, seemed suddenly aware, though not alive in any way, Robyn understood. Bonnie's voice broke the quiet. "Don't touch him." Robyn froze. The man's mouth twitched, not a smile, not a breath, but the ghost of both. Then stillness again, absolute. "Did you see that?" Robyn whispered. Bonnie nodded once. "That's what I meant. They remember being human, for a heartbeat at a time." The silence between them stretched until it snapped beneath the soft sound of dripping water. Somewhere outside, a bird screamed. Not fear, just the raw edge of existence. Robyn stepped back, every nerve drawn tight. "We should leave." "Not yet." Bonnie's eyes darted to the far corner of the gallery. "There's something else. Come see." She led the way through a tangle of rusted machinery to a narrow door set into the wall. Half hidden behind a fuse panel, it looked more like an afterthought than a planned exit. Bonnie pushed it open and a stairway yawned downward, swallowed by dark. "The old generator control," Bonnie said. "There's power still running down there. You can feel it through the railings when the pulse comes." "You've been inside?" Robyn asked. Bonnie's hesitation was answer enough. "Only part way. I heard something moving." Robyn eyed the stair. "Rats." Bonnie shook her head. "Not rats. Something bigger." Robyn's instincts whispered that this was the kind of stair people didn't climb back from. But the part of her that had spent years alone in silence, the part that needed answers to fill the spaces where voices used to be, urged her forward. "Fine," she said, pulling her torch from her belt. "Let's see what's waiting." The beam cut down the stairwell, showing steps slick with moisture, walls furred with moss. Water dripped somewhere below, slow and rhythmic, keeping time with the memory of the hum. They descended. The light found cables thick as her arm, veins that once carried power to half the Highlands. Some were still faintly warm beneath her palm. Halfway down, a door stood ajar, and beyond it, a low corridor ending in a steel chamber. Inside the chamber, dull lights blinked red and amber, steady as heartbeats. "Alive," Robyn whispered. "After all these years." Bonnie's face was pale in the torchlight. "It's drawing energy from somewhere. Maybe from the lock itself." Robyn stepped closer, running her torch across the floor. The concrete was cracked, but beneath the cracks she saw the outlines of shapes, human-sized, pressed into the dust like fossils. "People," she breathed. Bonnie nodded. "They were trying to keep the generators running when it happened. Maybe they became part of it." The hum began again, faint, rising from deep below. The lights on the panel flared, turning from red to white. Then Robyn heard it, a soft scrape behind them. She swung the torch. At the bottom of the stair, the man from the gallery stood watching. He didn't blink, didn't breathe. His head tilted as before, neck stiff as timber. The light caught his eyes, and they reflected nothing back. Bonnie took a step backward, pipe raised. "He shouldn't be able to move." "He isn't," Robyn said, though her own voice trembled. "He's just closer." The man's fingers twitched once. The hum deepened. The air grew hot, metallic. Dust swirled. The lights on the wall flashed erratic, white to white again, faster. "Bonnie," Robyn began, but her words drowned in the sudden roar of machinery waking from decades of sleep. The turbines above them groaned like things remembering how to breathe, and in the red pulse of the emergency lights Robyn saw the man's hand rise, slow and graceful, reaching toward them. Not a man anymore. Not quite. Something caught between, something that had been waiting to finish what the world had started. Chapter 5. The Girl by the Fire. They ran until their lungs burned. The stairwell spat them into the wet cold of the hillside, their boots splashing through moss and runoff. Behind them the hydro station murmured like a beast turning in its sleep. No alarms, no lights now, just the echo of the hum fading back into the lock's wide silence. Bonnie collapsed first, dropping beside a half-fallen birch. Robyn followed, falling to her knees, her pulse hammering in her ears. The cold air stung her throat raw. For a long time, neither of them spoke. When Robyn finally looked back, the dam was still. The spillway glistened under the faint blue of early evening, and a thin ribbon of mist curled above it. Nothing moved. No figure at the door, no sound of pursuit. Yet the memory of the man's hand rising haunted her vision like after-image. She could still see the fingers twitching, still feel the air shifting in that impossible way, like the world had sighed awake. Bonnie stirred, running a hand through her tangled hair. "We shouldn't stay close. If the pulse comes again, it'll reach everywhere," Robyn finished. Bonnie nodded. "Aye, but I'd rather not be the first it touches." They climbed higher, through gorse and heather, until they found a small outcrop sheltered by pine and rock. From there, they could see the valley below, the drowned village roofs like ribs beneath the black glass of the water, and the dam itself crouched like a jawbone against the hills. Robyn gathered fallen branches while Bonnie struck flint against a shard of steel. A spark caught. The tiny flame hesitated, then took, and the first fire Robyn had seen in months was born in the hollow between them. She almost forgot what light felt like, how it moved, how it dared to dance. It wasn't just warmth but presence, a declaration, I exist, still. Bonnie fed the fire slowly, hands practiced. "Never use fresh wood," she murmured. "Smoke gives you away for miles." Robyn watched the flame's small flicker reflect in Bonnie's eyes. "You've done this before." "Too many times." They sat in silence a while, trading warmth and quiet like currency. The loch below reflected the stars, perfectly still, except for the faintest ripple spreading outward from the dam. "You live alone?" Robyn asked. Bonnie nodded. "Since I was 10. Robyn said nothing. The arithmetic was familiar. Loss measured in years since, not years lived. After a moment, Bonnie spoke again. "My dad thought the world ended because we forgot how to listen. Said all our noise, the cities, the machines, drowned out the quiet. When the stillness came, he said it was the world taking its breath back. And you believed him?" "I wanted to." Bonnie's voice softened. "He went still that winter, standing at the door, watching the sky. I stayed till spring, then left before he thawed." Robyn poked the fire with a stick, watching sparks rise. "You think they feel it?" "When the hum starts?" Bonnie nodded. "They remember, just a heartbeat of life, then they forget again." "That's not living." "No," Bonnie said. "It's worse. It's remembering you were alive and knowing you're not anymore." The wind stirred through the trees, whispering through needles and the long grass. The world here was so quiet that even breathing felt like trespass. After a time, Robyn said, "You said the pulses come from the dam. You think it's deliberate?" Bonnie's expression darkened. "Something in there's still running. Old systems, power grids, auto-safeguards, whatever was left before the collapse. Maybe it's trying to start itself again. Or maybe it's not a machine anymore." Robyn looked at her sharply. "What do you mean?" Bonnie stared into the fire. "What if the still ones are part of it now? The dam, the turbines, the power, all of it mixed together. The pulse doesn't just move the machines, it moves them, like they're connected." Robyn's jaw tightened. "Connected how?" "Maybe they were the ones keeping the power going when the world ended," Bonnie said. "Maybe the system needed them. Their heat, their charge, their something, and it never let go." Robyn didn't answer. The idea burrowed under her skin like a splinter. For a while, the only sound was the fire's soft crackle, the smell of pine sap mixed with smoke. Above them, the first snow began to fall, lazy, weightless flakes drifting into the circle of light and dying on contact. Bonnie held her hands toward the flames. "You've got that look," she said. "What look?" "The one people get when they're trying not to believe something that already feels true." Robyn forced a faint smile. "You think too much." Bonnie shrugged. "Somebody has to." Robyn watched the fire, then the loch below. A pale shimmer rippled across its surface again, just once, and was gone. You said they move when the pulse comes. What happens if one wakes fully? Bonnie's voice dropped. Then the world starts remembering itself. The fire snapped, scattering sparks. For an instant, the valley seemed to glow, the loch gleaming like liquid steel, the dam gleaming faintly under the moon. And then the hum began again, faint at first, then stronger. The fire trembled. The air thickened. Robyn felt the ground vibrate beneath her palms. Already? Bonnie whispered. It wasn't supposed to happen again so soon. The hum climbed in pitch until it became something alive, a trembling sound that seemed to come from inside their bones. Robyn turned toward the valley. Below them, faint lights flickered along the dam, one, then two, then a dozen, like the blinking of something waking after a long sleep. And in the distant shadows of the drowned village, the silhouettes began to move. Not walking, not yet, but shifting, turning their faces toward the firelight. Bonnie stood, pipe raised. Put it out, she hissed. Robyn kicked snow onto the flames, smothering the glow until only smoke and ash remained. Darkness reclaimed the hillside. Below, the hum peaked, then fell away again, leaving the world hollow and too quiet. The still ones, whatever they were, stilled once more. But Robyn knew what she'd seen. She turned to Bonnie. We can't stay here. Bonnie nodded. No, but we can't run forever either. Robyn looked down at the loch, at the dam, and the faint shimmer that pulsed beneath the water's skin. Then maybe it's time we stopped running, she said softly. And though she didn't say it aloud, one thought beat through her like a second heart. If the world wants to wake up, I need to know what it remembers. Chapter 6. Shadows that Remember. They moved before dawn. The mist was thick enough to hide them from the valley below, curling low and soft like something alive. Each breath drew in the scent of peat and frozen moss. Neither girl spoke. The silence between them had become its own language. By the time the first thin ribbon of light slipped over the ridgeline, the hydro station crouched ahead again, unchanged but different now that they'd seen it breathe. The world had seams, Robyn thought, and last night they'd found one. Bonnie crouched by the perimeter fence, testing the wire with 2 fingers. Still dead. Until the next pulse, Robyn said. Bonnie nodded, then slipped through the gap. Robyn followed, scanning the dam's concrete flank. No movement, no sound. The still ones, if any remained, kept their vigil unseen. Inside, the air was colder than before. The turbines loomed like monuments, silvered by the faint daylight that filtered through the high windows. The building smelled of metal and time and something faintly sweet, decay with manners. Bonnie led the way down to the lower corridor they'd fled from the night before. The door at the bottom of the stair was still ajar, the faint outline of their footprints visible in the dust. But a new set trailed beside them, bare, light, smaller than either of theirs. Bonnie noticed too. Her voice dropped. We weren't the only ones here last night. Robyn nodded, scanning the shadows. Keep your light low. They moved in slow rhythm, torches barely breathing against the dark. The hum was gone now, replaced by a dense quiet that thickened the air. Every sound they made, each step, each slow inhale seemed amplified. The steel chamber ahead waited, patient. The faint amber lights blinked in their steady rhythm, marking time in a world that had lost its clocks. Bonnie approached the main console, tracing the panel with her fingertips. There's power coming from below, a sub-generator or a feed line that never shut down. If we can cut it. Robyn's torch beam caught something on the far wall. She froze. Bonnie. Bonnie turned. The light revealed a mural of sorts, lines scrawled in soot, looping and spiralling across the concrete. Human figures, dozens of them, drawn rough and desperate, all facing one direction, upward, toward the ceiling. What is that? Bonnie whispered. Robyn stepped closer. The shapes were crude, but the message clear. The figures had arms raised, reaching toward something above them. A ring, a circle, maybe the sun. But above the circle, smeared in darker soot, was a single word, remember. Robyn's stomach knotted. Someone drew this. Or something, Bonnie murmured. As she said it, the air shifted. A faint scrape echoed down the corridor behind them, metal against stone. Robyn swung her torch. The beam caught the corner just as a shadow flicked past. For an instant, she thought it was a trick of light. But no, the movement was deliberate, fluid. Did you see that? Bonnie whispered. Robyn nodded. Keep close. They edged forward, the corridor narrowing until it felt like the walls were leaning in. The air smelled faintly of ozone, like lightning before it strikes. Then came the hum, faint growing trembling through the floor. Bonnie stopped dead. It's starting again. The vibration built faster than before, climbing through the soles of their boots into their bones. Dust sifted down from the ceiling. The red lights on the control panel flared to white. And from the darkness ahead came a voice. Not a human voice exactly, something slower, stretched thin and distant. A whisper carried on metal, more vibration than sound. Help. Bonnie's eyes widened. That wasn't an echo. The hum deepened until the lights flickered like candle flames in wind. The mural on the wall seemed to shift in the trembling light, the drawn figures writhing as if alive. Then she saw him. The man from the gallery stood in the doorway. He shouldn't have been able to move that far. But there he was, coat hanging like a shroud, head tilted, eyes reflecting the torchlight in dull, unblinking silver. Bonnie stumbled back, pipe raised. "Stay away!" He didn't answer, didn't blink, just took one step forward, then another. His movement was wrong, too smooth, too silent, like gravity remembered him differently. Robyn's heart thudded against her ribs. "Bonnie, I see him." The man stopped a few paces away, his lips parted slightly. "Help." The word was wrong, as if borrowed from someone else's mouth. The sound carried no breath, no life, just vibration. Then behind him another shadow appeared, and another. Figures stepped out of the dark like memories uncoiling. Men, women, even a child, all still-eyed, all moving in perfect unison. Bonnie whispered, "They're waking." The hum spiked, the walls trembled. One of the amber lights shattered, raining glass. "Run," Robyn said. They turned, sprinting for the stair. The corridor seemed to lengthen, the hum chasing them like a heartbeat too fast to keep up with. Behind, the footsteps began, not hurried, not panicked, but steady, patient. By the time they reached the stairwell, the hum had become a roar. They climbed, lungs burning, hands slipping on the railings, slick with condensation. A flash of light behind them painted the walls white for a heartbeat, then plunged everything back into black. They burst into the turbine hall, gasping. The turbines themselves shuddered, blades twitching as though remembering their old rhythm. Bonnie doubled over, coughing. They were moving, Robyn. All of them. Robyn stared down into the stairwell. The hum was fading again, falling back into the deep. "They're not gone," she said softly. "They're waiting for the next pulse." Bonnie looked at her, face pale in the weak daylight filtering through the roof. "Then we don't have much time before it comes again." Robyn nodded. "Next time we're ready." "Ready how?" Robyn glanced back toward the stairwell, where the darkness seemed to breathe. "We find out what they remember." "Would you like me to continue with Chapter 7, The Pulse, next, where the dam's full surge triggers a catastrophic awakening, and Robyn begins to suspect the still ones might not be entirely mindless? Chapter 7, The Pulse. By midday, the air itself seemed to hum, though the pulse hadn't yet come. It was in the metal, in the water, in the very marrow of the hills. The world was waiting again. Robyn and Bonnie took shelter in the narrow service corridor above the main turbine hall, high enough that they could watch the floor below through the slats. Dust motes drifted in and out of sunlight that filtered through cracked panes. From this height, the turbines looked like bones, vertebrae of something buried but restless. Robyn crouched by a grated vent and listened. Every 30 seconds the same small sound returned. Tick, tick, tick. Somewhere deep in the dam, machinery was winding itself up for another attempt at life. Bonnie sat against the wall, knees drawn to her chest, eyes dark and sharp with exhaustion. "It's not random," she said. "It's getting shorter. The gap between pulses." Robyn nodded. "Like it's building to something." "Or learning," Bonnie said quietly. "Each time it wakes, it remembers more." The word remembers landed between them like a dropped coin. They both thought of the figures in the lower chamber, the still faces, the whispering word that hadn't quite belonged to any living tongue. Robyn rubbed her hands together, trying to chase the chill. "You said it draws power from below the lock. If we cut it, it'll take the whole valley with it." Bonnie interrupted. "The reservoir's still full. If those floodgates fail, everything between here and the coast drowns." Robyn stared through the vent. "So we let it keep waking them?" Bonnie's answer was slow. "Until we understand what it is, yes." They spent the afternoon scavenging. The old storeroom still held relics from when people had worked here. Oil tins, metal tape, a flare gun whose casing had corroded but still held promise. In the supervisor's office, Robyn found a stack of logbooks sealed in plastic. Most of the pages were moulded together, but one entry at the back was still legible. Open quote, 15th of October. Power fluctuations again. Staff reporting faint voices on lower-level intercom during shutdown. Believe system interference from damp. Ordered inspection postponed until weather clears. 16th of October, shutdown unsuccessful. Automatic override refused. Source of hum undetermined. Recommend total evacuation if resonance continues. Close quote. The date meant nothing now, but the handwriting was steady until the final line, the pen stroke breaking off mid-word. Continues became Conti, and then nothing. Robyn closed the book slowly. They heard voices before it happened. Bonnie looked up. From where? Intercoms. Maybe the system itself. Robyn handed her the book. What if the still ones aren't being controlled by the pulse? What if they're part of it? Like a circuit? Bonnie's gaze dropped to the floor. Then killing the power might kill them, or it might wake them all at once. Evening crept in unnoticed. The light dulled to iron grey, and the lock outside flattened to mirror glass. The world felt caught between breaths again. Robyn and Bonnie climbed back to the gallery, where they'd first seen the man. He was gone now, or had blended back into shadow. Only the faint print of a bare foot in the dust marked where he'd stood. Robyn crouched beside it. He moved. We both saw him. Bonnie's voice was a whisper. Do you think he followed us? Robyn shook her head. No, I think he went where he was meant to. Which is? Back to the pulse. The first tremor came just after nightfall. It began as a low vibration underfoot, subtle, rhythmic, steady. The turbines groaned in sympathy, their blades twitching like muscle. The air thickened, heavy with static. The mist outside the windows shimmered faintly, like heat above a road. Then came the hum. It rose fast, too fast this time. No gentle swell, just a sudden surge of sound so deep it seemed to pour through the walls themselves. The structure shuddered, bolts creaked, dust rained from the rafters in a fine, glittering snow. Bonnie gripped the rail. It's stronger! Robyn couldn't answer. Her teeth buzzed in her skull. The hum vibrated in her ribs, her throat, her breath. It was inside her. And then came the light. Not from their torches. From below. It began deep under the floor, a dull blue glow that seeped up through the cracks and steel gratings, brightening until it painted the turbines in ghost light. Shadows sprang up the walls, dancing, bending, flickering like they'd remembered movement. The still ones, Robyn managed. There! Bonnie pointed toward the far end of the hall. The man from before was there again, standing by the stairwell. Only this time he was not alone. A dozen others had joined him, forming a silent congregation. Their faces turned toward the light below, expressions caught somewhere between awe and pain, and then they began to breathe. It was the faintest sound, the intake of lungs unused to air, the tremor of chest against fabric, but real. They were breathing in rhythm with the hum. Robyn's stomach twisted. We need to get out. Bonnie didn't move. Her eyes were fixed on the nearest figure, a woman with her head tilted toward the ceiling. Look, the woman's lips were moving, not words, just the shape of them, mouthing something inaudible. Robyn strained to listen. Beneath the hum, beneath the vibration, she caught it, the barest whisper. Remember, the same word written on the wall downstairs. Then the light flared. The turbines roared to life, screaming like beasts reborn. Wind tore through the hall, scattering paper and ash. The still one's eyes shone with reflected light, all turning in eerie unison to face the girls on the gallery. Robyn grabbed Bonnie's arm. Run! They bolted for the stair at the far end of the gallery. The air burned their throats, hot and electric. The hum crescendoed until it became a living thing, a chorus of voices crying from the concrete itself. Halfway down the stair, the metal buckled under the strain, throwing them forward. Robyn hit the floor hard, shoulder first, pain lancing up her arm. Bonnie dragged her upright. They're moving, Bonnie shouted. Robyn glanced back and saw the still ones descending the hall, not fast, not stumbling, walking. Their movements were almost human now, synchronized to the rhythm of the turbines. Keep going, Robyn yelled. They reached the outer corridor and shoved through the service door, bursting into night air. The wind from the valley hit them like a wave. Behind, the dam throbbed with light, pulses running up its face like veins. They stumbled down the slope, hearts hammering. The hum followed them through the ground, echoing in their bones. When they finally stopped, halfway down the ridge, the sound still filled the valley, vast and deep, like the earth itself was speaking. Bonnie sank to her knees, shaking. They were waking, she whispered. All of them. Robyn stared back toward the dam. The light had begun to fade, dimming one pulse at a time. Not waking, she said slowly. Learning. Bonnie looked at her, eyes wide. Learning what? Robyn's gaze never left the dam. How to move, how to be alive again. The wind rose, carrying a low, dying echo across the loch, a whisper that might have been the hum, or might have been something else entirely. Remember. Chapter 8. The storm breaks. The rain came before dawn. Not a drizzle, not the harmless highland mist that softened everything into gentleness, but a hard, relentless deluge that fell like penance. The kind of rain that stripped leaves from branches and turned soil to slurry in a heartbeat. By the time Robyn and Bonnie reached the ridge above the loch, the entire valley was trembling under the storm. The dam below was no longer a grey scar in the landscape, but a living thing, its surface crawling with water that streamed over the parapets and poured through the spillway in foaming torrents. Bonnie wiped rain from her eyes. It's overflowing. It's not just the rain, Robyn shouted above the wind. The gates aren't holding. She could see it now, the sluices shuddering, one half open and pounding under the pressure, the others sealed but bulging like ribs beneath the skin. The hum had stopped hours ago, but its echo still lingered in the concrete, as if the structure itself was remembering how to pulse. Lightning split the sky, bathing the valley in white. For a heartbeat, Robyn saw them, the still ones, scattered across the dam's surface like statues in the storm. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Standing motionless in the rain, faces turned upward toward the heavens. Then darkness again. Bonnie caught her arm. We need to get higher. But Robyn wasn't looking at the hillside. She was staring at the dam's base, where water frothed into the drowned village below. The rooftops were nearly gone now, the steeple of the church barely visible above the surge. And yet, through the chaos, she thought she saw movement. Shapes wading, not floating, figures pushing against the current, dragging themselves upright, their limbs heavy as clay. "Bonnie," she breathed, "they're in the water." Bonnie followed her gaze, then swore softly under her breath, "God save us." A sound rose above the storm, a deep mechanical groan followed by a grinding shriek that vibrated through the ground. One of the floodgates was moving, not opening, not closing, trembling. The concrete beneath it cracked with a noise that made Robyn's teeth ache, and from inside the dam, light began to leak again. Not the cold blue of the turbines this time, something redder, a pulse like the heart of the world itself. "The generator's still running," Bonnie said, her voice half swallowed by the wind. "If the core overheats," Robyn already knew the rest, "the dam will go." The loch shifted. A pressure wave rippled outward, pushing debris to shore. The figures below turned toward it in eerie unison, heads lifting, eyes reflecting the faint red glow from beneath the water. Bonnie tugged Robyn's sleeve. "We have to move." But Robyn stayed rooted. Lightning flashed again, and in that flash she saw the truth. The still ones weren't scattered randomly. They were forming a pattern. Lines of bodies, precise and symmetrical, radiating out from the dam like spokes on a wheel. She felt the word before she spoke it. They're connected. Bonnie followed her gaze, comprehension dawning in her face, like a circuit. The thunder cracked above them. "They're not resisting the pulse," Robyn said, half to herself. "They are the pulse." The ground beneath them lurched. A tremor ran up through the hillside, flinging stones and mud down the slope. A section of the dam's parapet gave way with a deafening crack, sending a torrent of water sheeting into the valley. Bonnie stumbled, falling to her knees. "It's going!" Robyn grabbed her, dragging her upright. "There's a maintenance tunnel along the ridge, north side. It leads to the old control platform. If we can reach the override, maybe we can release the spillway before it bursts." Bonnie blinked water from her lashes. "You think it still works?" "I don't know," Robyn said. "But if it doesn't, this whole valley's gone." They ran. Mud sucked at their boots, rain blinding their eyes. The roar of the dam filled the world, no longer a hum, no longer mechanical, but something alive and furious. The loch was spilling over its own edges now, climbing the banks like a rising tide of memory. The tunnel entrance was half hidden behind a tangle of thorn and rubble. Robyn ripped at the branches, tearing her palms bloody, and shoved Bonnie through first. They crawled into the dark, the narrow shaft echoing with the groan of tortured metal. Water seeped through the cracks in the concrete roof, running cold down their backs. The tunnel sloped downward toward the heart of the dam. When they reached the first junction, Robyn stopped. The hum was back, low, constant, deeper than before. It was no longer coming from beneath them, it was inside the walls. Bonnie whispered, "It's everywhere now." The corridor ahead opened into a control platform overlooking the turbines. The same red light from before pulsed through the chamber, painting everything in shades of blood. And standing in that light were three figures, still ones. Their faces blank, skin glistening with moisture. They turned as one when the girls entered, eyes reflecting the pulse like mirrors. Robyn raised her torch, but before she could move, one of the figures spoke, a whisper, dry, rasping, "Stop!" The voice didn't belong to any living throat. It was layered, mechanical and human all at once, the sound of countless voices speaking through one mouth. Bonnie froze. Robyn's breath came shallow. "What do you want?" The still one tilted its head. "Remember." The hum flared, drowning the word in vibration. The turbines below began to turn again, slowly, like awakening beasts. Bonnie stepped forward, pipe in hand. "They're drawing power from the water," she said. "If we overload the system—" "Bonnie, wait." Too late. She swung the pipe against the nearest conduit. Sparks flew. The hum roared into a scream. The still ones convulsed as if struck by lightning, their bodies arching, eyes blazing white. Then, one by one, they turned their heads toward the girls. Robyn grabbed Bonnie's arm. "Run!" They bolted through the corridor, the walls pulsing with light, the sound of pursuit behind them, bare feet slapping wet concrete. The tunnel trembled. Cracks spidered along the walls, water spraying through. They burst through the exit hatch onto the dam's outer walkway. Rain lashed sideways, lightning clawed the sky. Beneath their feet, the entire structure shuddered with each pulse. Robyn turned toward the control tower. "If we can reach the manual override." But the words died in her throat. The still ones were everywhere. Dozens of them, standing in the rain, forming perfect lines along the dam's edge. Not moving, not attacking, just waiting. Their faces lifted to the storm as the red glow built beneath their feet. Bonnie's voice broke. "What are they doing?" Robyn didn't answer. She knew. The pattern was complete now. The circle closed. They weren't trying to stop the flood, they were calling it. The hum reached its peak, a pitch so high it felt like it would tear the sky apart. Then the world broke open. The floodgates ruptured. Water exploded through the valley in a wall of white and noise. Robyn felt herself lifted, weightless for a heartbeat, before the world dissolved into cold and chaos. When she came to, the rain had stopped. The dam was gone. The valley below was an inland sea, still steaming under the bruised dawn. Wreckage floated in silence. Timbers, branches, fragments of roof, and on the surface of the new lake, hundreds of still ones drifted like lilies, faces turned upward toward the light. Bonnie was beside her, coughing, pale but breathing. Robyn rolled onto her back, staring at the flooded world. The air hummed faintly, a memory of what had been. "They're gone," Bonnie rasped. Robyn shook her head, eyes fixed on the water. "No," she whispered, "they're not gone. They've just moved." The loch shimmered, and beneath its calm skin, something vast turned once, slow, deliberate, remembering. Chapter 9. The Choice. By morning the world had become a mirror. Mist lay thick over the new lake, silver and unbroken. The hills that had framed the old valley now rose like islands in a sea without horizon. Where once the dam had stood, a monument to human industry, there was only a jagged wound of concrete teeth, half submerged, still steaming faintly from the collapse. Robyn sat on a patch of high ground, her hair still wet, her hands shaking despite the sun that had broken through. Bonnie was asleep beside her, wrapped in a torn survival blanket they'd scavenged from the debris. She slept shallowly, face pale, breathing ragged. It was hard to tell how long Robyn had been awake. The world had gone quiet again, the hum gone. But in the silence she could almost hear it still, the faint vibration of the earth remembering sound. The still ones drifted below, scattered across the water. They floated upright, heads tilted toward the sky as if waiting for instruction. From this height, they looked almost peaceful. Almost. Robyn tried not to think of how many there'd been in the tunnels, how many more the water might have set free. The sun caught something on the far side of the lake, a dull, rhythmic flash. Not lightning, not reflection. A signal. She rose slowly, her muscles protesting, and shaded her eyes. The flash came again, faint but deliberate. Bonnie stirred. "What is it?" "Light, south side," Robyn said. "Could be a reflection from metal or someone alive." Bonnie sat up, wincing. "Alive?" Robyn nodded. "Or whatever's pretending to be." They shared a look. The question didn't need asking. They both knew what it might mean. Bonnie pulled herself unsteadily to her feet. If someone survived the flood, they'd be trapped, Robyn finished. Maybe in the control chamber, the generator cores down there. Bonnie's voice was low. Or they're calling us down. They found a narrow service bridge still intact, a skeleton of steel spanning what remained of the dam's upper wall. Beneath them, the lake lapped against broken machinery. Oil swirled in rainbow sheens across the surface, and between the ripples, shadows moved. The air smelled of iron and rain. Every few minutes the water would stir, a small ripple that spread outward in perfect circles. Robyn tried not to think about what caused it. Bonnie followed close behind, both of them silent except for the drip of water from their boots. At the midpoint the bridge sagged, one beam twisted from the collapse. Robyn crouched and shone her torch through a crack in the steel. Beneath she glimpsed motion, a faint blue light pulsing in the depths. Bonnie leaned closer. "The generator's still alive," Robyn nodded. "And if that's true, so is everything connected to it." The thought hung between them, heavy as the air before thunder. The bridge led to what had once been the control platform, a concrete ledge now half submerged, littered with debris. The door to the lower chamber hung open, water seeping from its frame. The light came from within. It wasn't the red glow they'd seen before. This was softer, paler, pulsing like breath. Robyn hesitated at the threshold. "You don't have to come." Bonnie snorted faintly. "And let you play hero alone? Not a chance." Together, they stepped into the dark. The air inside was humid, metallic, alive with faint static. The chamber was half flooded, the lower steps vanishing into murky water that glowed faintly from below. The hum was back, but different now, not angry, not mechanical, almost steady. "Listen," Bonnie whispered. "It's slower." Robyn nodded. "Controlled." From somewhere beneath the water came a flicker, then another flash of blue. The signal. She knelt by the edge, holding her torch low. Someone rigged this, the lights deliberate. Bonnie's grip tightened on her shoulder. "Robyn, look." The water shifted. Something was rising. A shape broke the surface, a human figure, soaked and pale, its eyes half open. For a heartbeat, Robyn thought it was another still one, until it gasped. The sound was raw and real, a living breath. "Help!" The voice was hoarse, choked by water and silence. The figure reached toward them weakly. Robyn dropped to her knees, hauling at the arm. The skin was slick, but warm, truly warm. "It's okay, I've got you." Bonnie crouched beside her, eyes wide. "Who is it?" The man coughed, choking up lake water, and for a moment Robyn saw his face clearly, early 30s, bearded, skin pale as wax. Then recognition hit her. It was the same man, the still one from the gallery. Bonnie reeled back, nearly slipping. No, that's impossible." Robyn's grip faltered. But the man, no, the thing, caught her wrist with surprising strength. His eyes opened fully now, and they weren't blank anymore. They were alive, dark and lucid. His voice was quieter this time, almost calm. "You have to finish it." Bonnie raised the pipe, her knuckles white. "Finish what?" "The cycle," he said. "The world won't stop remembering. You have to end it." Robyn's heart hammered. "End what?" He didn't answer. His gaze flicked toward the water, where faint white shapes moved beneath the surface, faces, dozens of them, drifting upward. "The dam," he whispered. "Destroy it. Don't let it start again." Bonnie took a step back. "He's lying. It's trying to trick us." Robyn hesitated. The hum grew louder, the water trembling. "Please," the man said, "before the next pulse, or it'll spread beyond the valley. They'll all wake." The words tore through her, something in them too human, too desperate to ignore. Bonnie's voice rose. "Robyn, look at him. He's one of them. You destroy what's left. You drown us too." Robyn stood, backing away. The man was still half submerged, his eyes pleading. "Choose," he whispered. Behind her, Bonnie was shaking. "Don't listen. If you kill the power, maybe they die. But what if they don't? What if it frees them?" The hum built again, faster now, the chamber shaking, water rising against the walls. Robyn's thoughts raced. The pulse wasn't just power, it was memory. The dam was remembering the world, piece by piece, through every still one it had claimed. And if it kept going, Bonnie's voice cracked. "Robyn, decide." She looked from Bonnie to the man, from the human to the almost human, from the life she'd fought to keep to the ghost of the world that refused to stay dead. "Please," the man whispered again, "end it." The hum hit a pitch so high it became pain. Robyn lunged for the control lever. Bonnie shouted, "Don't!" Robyn pulled. The hum broke. The light flared once, white and blinding, and then everything went still. Utterly, perfectly still. The water's surface flattened. The air stopped trembling. The light died. And in the quiet that followed, Robyn heard the world exhale for the first time in 10 years. When she opened her eyes, the chamber was dark again. Bonnie knelt beside her, soaked but alive. The man was gone. Only ripples marked where he'd been. Outside, the lake was calm. No movement, no hum. The still ones floated motionless, their faces turned downward now, sinking one by one beneath the glassy surface. Bonnie's voice was a whisper. "You did it." Robyn wasn't sure. Or I just gave them peace. She looked toward the horizon, where the morning light broke clean across the new sea. It was quiet, for now, but in that quiet she thought she heard a faint echo beneath the water, something like a heartbeat, slow and patient, waiting, remembering. Chapter 10. The Stillness Ends. The lake lay smooth beneath the new sun, a sheet of beaten silver stretching from ridge to ridge. No hum, no storm, just the steady lap of water against stone, the sound of the world remembering how to breathe. Robyn sat at the edge of what had once been the service road, her boots half submerged, eyes unfocused on the reflections. The surface held pieces of the old world, a twisted ladder, a splintered desk, the roof of a drowned cottage. All stilled now, the water claiming its quiet. Bonnie crouched beside her, wringing out her sleeves. "It's really over," she said. "Feels wrong that it's just quiet." Robyn smiled faintly. "We've spent years wishing for quiet." "Aye," Bonnie said, "but this kind feels different. Feels like the pause after something's spoken." They watched the ripples fade. The bodies, the still ones, were gone now, drawn down by the lake's weight. There would be no graves, no markers. The water would remember for them. Bonnie glanced sideways. "You think he was right, the man? That we finished it?" Robyn didn't answer at once. She traced a line in the mud with her finger, then wiped it clean again. Maybe. Maybe that was what he wanted, or maybe it was what the dam wanted through him. Hard to tell the difference anymore. Bonnie gave a small, tired laugh. "You're starting to sound like me. I'll take that as a compliment." A long silence stretched, but it wasn't heavy. The air smelled of pine and wet stone, honest smells. Far off, a bird cried, the first they'd heard since the flood, and both girls turned toward the sound, as if it might vanish if they looked too directly. "It's coming back," Bonnie said softly. "All of it. The noise, the life." Robyn watched the bird wheel above the drowned valley. Maybe the world had to stop to remember how to start again. Bonnie studied her. "And us?" Robyn stood, brushing dirt from her knees. "We keep moving, same as before, but maybe now we listen when it's quiet." They climbed the ridge by noon. The flood had carved new rivers down the hillside, and each step sent gravel sliding into the water below. From the summit they could see miles. The highlands spread wide and scarred, clouds dragging slow shadows across them. Here and there, thin threads of smoke curled from the landscape. Not storm smoke, campfire smoke. Bonnie shaded her eyes. "You see that?" "People," Robyn said, "or what's left of them." Bonnie's grin was quick and lopsided. "Looks like we're not the last after all." Robyn felt the smallest flicker of warmth beneath her ribs. The idea of others, voices, faces, stories not yet finished, was both terrifying and beautiful. She adjusted her pack. "We head east. If they've survived this long, they'll have water, food, maybe answers." Bonnie nodded. "You think they'll want company?" Robyn smiled, the kind that came from muscle memory rather than hope. "If they don't, they'll learn." They started walking. The path wound through heather and stone, soft underfoot. Behind them, the new lake glimmered in the sun, unbroken except for one slow ripple spreading from its centre, too small to be wind, too precise to be chance. Bonnie caught it too. "Please tell me that's just a fish." "Let's pretend it is," Robyn said. They walked faster after that, neither willing to look back. That night they camped beneath a stand of pines. The fire was small, just enough to keep the chill at bay. The world smelled clean again, scrubbed raw by rain and silence. Bonnie leaned back against a log. "What now, then?" "Build something. Find the others?" Robyn stirred the coals. "Maybe, or maybe we wait for the world to tell us what it needs next." Bonnie made a face. "You've gone philosophical on me." Robyn smirked. "Spending time in drowned valleys will do that." The wind shifted, carrying the faintest echo from far below. Not hum, not thunder. Just a low, soft vibration like a heartbeat deep in the earth. Bonnie didn't seem to notice. She'd already drifted towards sleep, her face slack with the rare peace of exhaustion. Robyn looked toward the dark horizon where the lake would be, unseen but not forgotten. She whispered to the night, more prayer than thought, "Stay asleep." The wind rustled through the trees in answer, neither promise nor threat, just the sound of life still moving. She lay back beside the fire, staring up through the branches. Stars emerged one by one, scattered and clear. The hum beneath the world faded with the night breeze until there was only the rhythm of her own breath and the quiet shift of embers. For the first time in years, she let herself believe the silence might hold. Somewhere far below, in the heart of the drowned dam, a single light blinked once. Then again, slow, steady. The world, it seemed, had not forgotten how to remember.
This was The Still Ones, written by Beryl Coops.
I hope you enjoyed my short story. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. I have written over 500 short stories over the years under many pen names. I will be updating these and recording them under the Beryl Coops name. I will be listing them on YouTube as fast as we can get them recorded. Something for everyone. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up. It helps others find my channel. Until next time, thank you for listening to the end.